Now I need to find my board. There's my microsite board in Miro. That's what I used to explain. This is my board from the past. Wonder what my circles were about. Maybe I used them to explain components. It's quite possible. Okay. Cool. Cool. Do I have wireframes in this one though? No. Oh, I love being chaotic. Okay, there's my wireframes. And this one, do I have mockups? Yay. Sick. All right. So the first deliverable we're going to be expanding on. For the midterm, the only thing like you absolutely really had to have was this first block, like talk about your page, what content's on it, and like ideas of what you wanted to put on the other pages. So now, as we go into the next 2 weeks, something you're going to need to expand your wireframes and to expand your designs is like a more hashed out plan for what content is going on each page. So I already kind of started this when I was doing my first pass of my sitemap. So I came up with a few different rinks I wanted to put on my rinks page. I came up with a couple of skate parks. I want to put my skate park page. And I got my trails page, but I didn't fill that in yet. So this is something I want to do moving forward. I need to figure out what I'm going to put up the content for this page before I move on to my other deliverables. So this probably won't be a very big lift for you. A lot of you already have this part done already. So like same thing of like figuring out what content you want to put there. So for me, I like to skate on the Hudson Valley Rail Trail. Oh, I love spelling. I'm gonna want to put the Empire Trail, which is different. Say the Kingston legs of it. Kingston. I love spelling. Okay, and then another one I might want to put, I might end up expanding on this further later, but I'm not gonna worry about too much right now. I'm gonna do the Rail Trail, Empire Trail, and the Ashokan Reservoir. Ashokan Promenade, I think is its official name. Promenade. Oh, so I actually think my information is gonna be somewhat similar here. I'm gonna put photos of each trail. I'm gonna say where they are, maybe some features, maybe some notes. Notable features. Random sites. Love spelling. And I'll leave level of difficulty because I think those ones are all different levels of difficulty. So expanding on sitemap further, I'm probably going to take this even further and like start plotting some of the images I might use on here. If there's text, I'm going to take from another source. I'm going to plot the links there, just so all that content information is all in one place for me. So I'm planning it all out in pretty solid amounts of detail. Something else I'm noticing is the pieces of information I'm using on these different pages. It looks like I'm highlighting like specific locations for different categories, and I might be able to lay that information out in really similar ways that I can style the same and not write 900 lines of CSS. I figure it out for like one instance of something and then get to just reuse it over and over and over again. So I'm gonna keep that in mind for later because it looks like I do have some like similarities in the content types, even though they're for different pages. Just because something has different pages doesn't mean it's necessarily so much more work. A big principle when it comes to doing visual design for web development and when you're actually coding is reusing stuff as much as you can and forming what's called a design system, if you've ever seen that. Design systems aren't so critical in such a small scope of a website, but the kind of principle of like finding places to reuse styles and reuse these like components, like little chunks of
content that might be something like a photo with information next to it that maybe those vertical one might be a good opportunity. So I'm feeling pretty good about my sitemap, although I do have one idea. I saw one of you do it and I thought it was really cool. Maybe I put this on my homepage, but maybe it ends up moving later. Maybe I'm gonna make like a Google My Map of all my locations and put it on my homepage. That was an idea I got from watching the midterm presentation. So it's okay to like see things other people are doing. You're like, oh, that's a great idea. I want to try that. Like iframes and embeds. I think our friend that sits there doing the hyperpop one, name starts with a J. It's Jessica. Yes, thank you. Like she figured out how to do the Spotify. It's like thinking about different kinds of rich content like that, because those actually don't require very much coding or styling at all, and they can bring like a lot of like interactivity and fun to your page. Also want to raise it a couple times in the past. I've had students utilize different like APIs and stuff to like bring information in. Like I had one student in the past do a website for their Etsy store, and I helped them use a tool that would like import all of their different items they have in stock and among other Etsy store onto their page, which didn't require actually all that much coding on their part. I had another student, I've had a good couple of times where students wanted to do a contact form on their site, which there's a pretty easy way to do, to like get the form fields of Google Forms to just output as plain HTML that you can style. And so like if that's something you're interested in doing, that's not too big of a lift. When it gets into like really complicated interactive functionality, that's where it's like probably a no-go. But if it's something where you're just using what's called an iframe or an embed, that's actually really easy. And if it's something that makes you excited, it's like you want to find your site and you're not sure if it's a good idea, like just send me an email and I can give you some advice and just some links. We can figure it out. But yeah, thinking about like what kind of content you want to do, like you don't have to keep it so simple of just like photos and text. You can embed YouTube videos, you can embed Spotify playlists, put maps, you can do all kinds of stuff. So if you have an idea and you're not really sure about how to go about it, you can always toss the idea out there and scrap it later. But it could be something we talk about. So I think I'll try adding a map and see how it goes for me. I feel like it's my sitemap pretty solid. So the next thing I'm gonna want to do is work on expanding my wireframes to kind of cover more stuff. Good place to start. Oh, I just turned sound up. There never was, so that helps. Okay, so we're gonna think about this homepage a bit more, because before I move any further, I'm gonna make sure my homepage is kind of like up to date to what I'm doing. And I already decided I wanted to add like an embedded map. So I think I'm gonna add another section down here. And well, I'm just gonna label it interactive map. Because you can always go back and edit the things that you already started. That is absolutely an option. The lake's not frozen over. All these assets are flexible. So I got that pretty good. I feel like that's pretty in line with what I had in my wireframe now. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and I've already kind of shown what my menu looks like, so I don't have to do that for every single screen. But I'm gonna go ahead into my sidebar in Figma, because remember my layers and my pages live on this left-hand side of the screen. And I'm gonna go ahead and add another frame in, because frames are artboards in Figma. And I think I was using Android large. Yes, that looks correct. And I'm going to go into the sidebar to rename this from Android large 1, because that means nothing to me. And this page is going to be called Rinks. And I'll actually start making use of Figma components now. So Figma basically has this tool called components, and those components go into something more complicated called the library. But for our intents and purposes, I think just using basic component instances will do the job for us. So you can kind of like, if you know you're going to use something again, which I think my page headers are pretty much always going to have a logo, a menu, and then the title of the page in the same size text. I can highlight a group of things, and then all the way up here, there is like a 4 diamonds shape in the middle. See, it says create component. If I click on that, it'll look like nothing happened at first. But then you'll see there's a purple box around my reusable items. And now in the sidebar, it says component 1. And to make my life easy, I'm going to, in the layers panel, double click on the text that says component 1. And I'm going to call it page header. And now, when I go to work on my next page, I can go to this other option in the left-hand side, it's assets. When I click on assets, there's a little drop down of components that I've made. And now I can just drag and drop that onto any of my pages. And I can even go into the text box and change what it says without messing with this other component. So I want this to be rings. I don't know if I actually want it to be left aligned like this, and this is why it's good to utilize the components. It's making me think through, what does this look like when it's not this text that's this wide? Well, I'm not too worried about appearances in a wireframe. I do think I just want it to be centered. So what I'll do, so back to layers panel, and I'll show you something, which is, so we have on our home page, I wonder if I zoom in, if this would be easier to see. No, of course not, that'd be too easy. We have our page header and it has like a dark purple diamond next to it. While in the second one I made, when I drag and dropped it onto the screen from the assets panel, it is like an empty white triangle next to it, or diamond. And what that is the filled in one is what's called our main component. And this is called our component instance. It's kind of like, this one is the stamp, and that's the image you stamped. One thing that's different about it than a stamp, though, is that I can edit it and get the changes to affect my other instances. So I can go ahead and click on my text and tell it to be center aligned, and you'll see that it kicked my other one right into the middle. And so I can actually make changes to all instances of the same component as long as I make that change in the main component. If I don't, and I make the change over here, it'll still work, but it won't make the change to the main one as well, or if there's other instances. The workaround for that is I'll right click on it, and there's an option in the dropdown that says main component, and you can say push changes to component. Problem is, then it changes the text. So the best way to make those kinds of changes is going back to the main component, because it won't change the text in the other instances. So I said that's middle, and now they both still have separate text, and they're both in the middle. And so I'm gonna get the thing going for all my other pages too. So my rings, I'm gonna make sure to name this one skate parks. Cool. And trails. And I can hop into my components, and I can say ski parks and trails. Well, and because I use my component, I can always go back to my main component and shift the alignment of the text. I can change the weight, and it'll just change for all of it, which is very handy, especially when you are working on a project with way more than 4 screens. Because this works a lot more like how CSS works, and it makes you make decisions that are easier to create in code. Well, again, I'm not super worried about visual design stuff in my wireframes. Sometimes using components saves me a lot of time in wireframes, because I could represent the same things very similarly in multiple screens. So anyway, now I have my 3 other wireframe screens. And what I'm gonna have to do from here, and I'm not gonna do it for all of them for the sake of not keeping you all here for ages, is I'm gonna go through the content I want to do, and I'm actually just gonna screenshot this and bring it over so I can reference it. If you put stuff not in a frame in Figma, well, do not do that. Okay, great. So now I can like reference it, and then when I'm done, I can delete it. But also, when it's not on a frame, Figma does not acknowledge its existence. When you like you view a prototype, like it's okay to put stuff off the side, very similar to like Illustrator or Photoshop. You put stuff outside of an artboard, it's all good. Okay, so I'm gonna want to figure out how I want to show each of these rings. And so I'm gonna, again, it's a wireframe, I don't need to get too crazy about it. It's not that deep, but I'll kick it down a font size to show it's going down a heading level. And I'll say skate time. And I'm probably gonna use a component to this again, just also to save me time. I'm gonna copy the way I did an image before to save me time. Because nothing is really that deep with wireframes. That image is not gonna be very big. Image. And then when your text box gets really huge like that, you don't want it to be, down in the text panel on the right-hand side, you can click on auto width and it'll make it just to the text. So I'm gonna skate time. And then I'm gonna have open, wow, that text is huge, but we'll deal with that in a sec. So I have in there, I should put a link to the website. But maybe the text is a link to the website. Nah. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna say that's probably the link. I'm gonna leave myself a comment to remind me of that. This will. Comments don't actually affect the visual output at all, but sometimes it's good to like make sense to yourself, like there is a good way to visually represent something in a wireframe. So I'm gonna say this will be a link to their website. And then I can always refer back to it by, it'll put like a little annotation on it, I can look at it. Cool. And then I'm gonna get out of comment mode. And the next thing I have in there is the hours and the days it's open. And I think they're open, I might have to go on their website and actually look. Skate time. NY.com. I think that's it. Not skate to me. I think it's skatetimeny.com. Let's see if I know the URL of my home range or not. Hey, I did get it. Oh, actually, maybe I want to put their logo as the text. I didn't even think of that. But anyway, there's the hours. Let me grab that. Figma. And then, okay, so that didn't work. Just doing a self frame. Copy. Okay. Okay, there we go. Wow, okay. So, wow, they're really complex. Very complex hours. Anyway, that's not that big of a deal though, because this is about wireframes. Wireframes, you're just getting the information there. You're gonna think about it more in the visual design phase later. So there's my hours. Looks like I'm gonna want to do links to social media, so maybe I'll just plop a couple of rectangles there for myself to kind of give myself the visual impression of some icons without going in too deep. Maybe I'll leave myself a little annotation, say those are social media icons. And what else? Location. Actually, I'm gonna put that up in the title, I think, and just maybe not have it be as bold. I'll put like a little like dot thing after it, and I'll say accord. New York. Okay. Now make that like less bold. Kind of convey that that's less important information. Teams and groups. And maybe I put that they. Whoa, that's huge. So with like that they have a roller derby team. Mid-Hudson Misfits. And they have an adult night that is notable, and they have like a family day thing. Or maybe it's like Sunday they do games or something like that. Sunday games and prizes. Okay, and so now I got a lot of information figured out about that rig. It would be really annoying if I had to write all that out for the next rig and like figure all that out the same way, but as it turns out, I don't. Because I have components on my side. You'll also notice that wireframes, especially when they have a page with a lot of information on it, it's not all gonna fit on the default frame height it gives you. You don't wanna change your frame's width, because your phone width cannot be changed, but there's this thing called scrolling. So you can just make it really tall. So now I have all my information I wanna use for that. I think that's good for like my base. Why is that so wide? Oh, there we go. Make sure your widths of your objects are not like before you start duplicating it, because in the boxes, the quick targets go all crazy. It's better if things fit correctly. I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the page header, because I know I'm gonna reuse this kind of content layout again in my wireframes. And I'm just gonna make it be a component, and I'll say content item. Cool, so now I can go over to assets, and when I do my other rings, I can save myself some time. And it's showing me what my component looks like by default. By default, it's gonna have my skate time information, but because this is a component instance and I'm a component, I can change the content in it without messing with what I did up here. And the next thing I wanna do is add wooden wheel, which is a ring just outside of Kingston. Wooden wheel. And it looks like I found an issue with my component in that I didn't think about what would happen when the text went to a second line. So I'll be editing that in a moment. Port Ewing, New York. And maybe I do not put them next to each other like that, because it's a bad idea. Because it makes the component hard to do, but look, see, I can like move it and then move it in the other one too. And again, it just saves me the million extra steps of going back and changing every single instance. And especially if I keep using this content framework for each content item I add in the whole wireframes, it'll make it easier for me to edit it. So now I have to go grab wooden wheels hours, but also I'm gonna do myself a favor, since I'm grabbing content from the Skate Time website, while like I don't think this would so much be a risk of plagiarism, I'm just gonna cover my bases, and if I pull content from a website, I'm just gonna plop that website onto my sitemap. And look, it even makes a little Miro card for it. How fun. So I can just plop that there, and it's there for me to reference later. If you find you're gripping images, you're gripping text, you're gripping information from another source, just go and grab it, because then later on you can attribute it properly and you don't lose track of it. Because probably what I'm gonna do is maybe like make like an extra page, or just like in my footer credit all the sources of information I got, like linked to, like thanks to Skate Time, Wheel and Hypercrow Magic for their ring information. Great. But if I don't keep track of that, it'll be really annoying, so I might know it later. Cool. So now I have Wooden Wheel. I'm gonna make sure I go find their website. They got like this whole like crazy little Earth guide. After I do the content in the Wooden Wheel one, I am gonna move on to do the mockup, but y'all will be expected to do it all of your content. Okay, there's Wooden Wheel. Beautiful website, Chef's Kiss. Make sure I plop their website down onto there so I don't lose it. And Wooden Wheel's got a little bit of a different vibe than Skate Time, and I want to make sure I acknowledge that properly in my wireframes. But what I'm actually here for, oh look, the address is in Ulster Park and not for you, and I was literally wrong. So first I'm gonna edit that. Whoa. It's running away from me. Ulster Park. Okay, and again, since my wireframes, I'm not getting too worried about the text wrapping, as long as the information's on the page. I'm not gonna lose my mind over it. Image placeholder still works. Okay, wow, they got a lot going on with their schedule stuff, but it looks like they're open Friday, 6:30 to 9. (6:30), and then when you connect time, make sure you hold down your option before you get that hyphen, make an end dash. Okay, Fridays, they're open from 6:30 to 9.
Saturdays. They're open 12:30 to 5 and then 6:30 to 9. Well, 30 to 5. 6:30 to 9. And then the day Sunday hours, yes, 12:30 to 4. Sunday, 12:30 to. Not Sunday. That's what I would say Sunday if I had a cold. Okay. So I got the hours information. I'll just leave that alone. Feel like they got birthday parties, fundraisers. They also got laser tag, which is pretty good. Like just like notable things about that break that stand out to me. Cool. And then basically I'll just keep going like with the next string. And then when I got skate parks, maybe I follow the same format, but skate parks usually don't have social media, so I might have a component that's a little bit different there. When I'm doing my mockups, I'll probably evaluate what's similar and what's different about those components, and maybe if they can be the same or not, if they need to be two separate things, that'll eventually have 2 different classes when I style them, time will tell. But basically, you're just gonna work your way through your wireframe, your sitemap, and like get that content figured out in your wireframes. You're gonna realize as you go through, you don't have a lot of the specifics of your content. And it's good to work it out now rather than when you're doing your mockups, because then your brain's trying to process too much stuff all at once. You're trying to figure out what color is this, what font am I using, what am I even putting here? You want to figure out what I'm putting here before you get into that, because it's going to help guide your visual design decisions to have your content figured out. Like, I'll probably end up deciding that this layout is really simple and like really boring, and I might just make a little more fun with it. But for the sake of my wireframes, it's just helping me figure out all the different kinds of content I have, so I can come up with good ideas about how to arrange it in my mockup. So at that point, I have my rink wireframe mostly done. I'm gonna have to push it over there and do that last rink later, but I don't want to keep you here all night. Walk me into a step-by-step tutorial on having wireframe, because I think y'all are smart enough to do that on your own. Okay, so from there, if you remember when I set up this file, I have pages set up. So I have wireframes and I have mockups, and they are different things. We love that. So I have a starting point of my mockups, and I have not yet added any other pages. So to make my life a little easier, I'm gonna do the same thing I did before with my sitemap. This is not like a specific method of UX design or anything. It's just like I like to do because I forget what I do all the time. And that is a screenshot of things so I can look at them while I work. So I'm just gonna grab that, go over to my mobile mockups, pop that over there so I have it to look at, and I can start working. So I definitely don't have everything I want on my home page right now, so I should probably hash that out before I start working on other pages. So I'm gonna do that, and also I don't have any components set up, and that's silly because that could be useful, and I can get a lot more done on other pages if I set up the components of my home page before I move forward. So first, let's pop back over to my homepage and make sure I have all the content that I have in my wireframes for it. So maybe I'll grab that too. Okay. Back to my wireframes page. So I think I have some of my stuff, but not all. I don't know if I want to stick to this like pixely font. So I think somebody else is using it, and I don't want to step on any toes. Remember that when you pick fonts, make sure you verify that they exist in Google Fonts or Adobe Fonts if you're feeling wild and you want to go track them all down. I think most of the fonts in here are Google Fonts. You can filter for Google Fonts. Tell me more. You get like fonts with the drop down is. Iconic. You can hit the drop down and hit Google Fonts. That's really good observation, like, great work. So you can just filter it to Google Fonts and your life will become much happier and easier. I love that for me. Well, that one's just not the vibe. I could be here all night trying to find the one that's the vibe. I'm gonna find one that is. That one looks like a child would pick that, and I'm not sure. Should have just stuck with the one I had in the beginning. All right, that's fine for now. I'm not gonna be pressed. Okay. So I have my header in place. My content's the same, but I actually do want to add like a map embed. So I am going to do a preview of that by just going to Google Maps. And for now, I'm not gonna get too crazy with it. I'm just gonna grab a little section of Google Maps and I will look into this more later. But for the sake of my visual design right now, I'm just gonna kind of get the vibe across by flopping some Google Maps action there. That'll help me know that's what I mean, but I should go and figure out my actual implementation method, where I'm getting my Google Maps embed from. But I'm not gonna do that right now. I can also, Google Maps has a tool called Google My Maps. You access from Google Docs and you can like put points on the map and then export it as an iframe. Which I forgot about when I was telling you the maps thing. The way you did it also works. Okay, so that's my plan for the homepage. I feel fine about that. I'm just gonna leave that out of the way so it's not distracting me, but now I've made that determination before I'm moving forward. Okay, there we go. Before I go into making mockups for other screens, friendly reminder that I'm going to make sure that I set up components. And I think I have the font size this one set to be like way too big. Remember when I was doing that with my when I was doing it on my wireframes, I was like, whoa, this is actually kind of hard to get to work. So yeah, we'll do like that. We'll center it. We'll make sure the text is centered. Leave a little bit of extra space in there. I can even vertically align it into the box to kind of sit in a similar place. Might need to revisit this design a little bit later, but for the sake of the demo, we're going to say that's my page header to set up that component. Once again, I'm just going to name it page header. You can name it the same thing as what you named it in wireframes, because what your file will do is it'll make like folders for each page, so they won't. It's not crossing the strings too much. So we got that. Make sure you go back over here. I've named it page header. I don't think I need to use any of the rest of this. I might save my text style, which is something else you could do. If you click the 4 little dots next to text, there's things in style. And you can put a plus sign. And I'm gonna say this is my H1 style. So I'm gonna name it H1. And so now when I start going in here, I'll have like H1, H2, H3. Kind of help me remember to work how HTML and CSS works. In my actual file, that is my H1 and this one's my H2. So I'm going to save this one and call it H2. And so now later on, if I do something like a heading and a subheading, I follow the same styles. So that way I'm not writing so much CSS as I continue to go onto other pages in this website. Okay, I don't think anything else is really things I need to reuse. So I am going to go to frames. I'm gonna do Android large again. I'm going to make sure I name the artboard, that's critical. I'm gonna call it Rinks, because that's what I was working on. And I'm gonna go to assets. I'm gonna grab my component, just drag and drop it right on there. I'm gonna maybe utilize the align panel, align it to the top of the screen. Well, it's actually up too high. I'll fix that in a sec and make sure it's centered. What I'm gonna do actually, because they're right next to each other, is use the align tool to just align the bottoms to each other to make sure it's pulled down the same amount. And I'm going to change my page title. So now I got Rinks. Sweet. Now let's see what else I need to get on here. Nice. And actually, something I can do if I'm feeling really lazy, like this is a very content rich component. I actually can grab the component I made for my wireframes. And I can do something, a sneaky trick where I right click on it. And I say detach instance, which makes it stop being friends with the component and just kind of like puts the content onto the page. Because I don't feel like remaking all of that, to be honest. And I'll style it how I want. And then I'll turn it back into a component and I'll make it a component within my mockups and I'll have nothing to do with the mockup. Or the component. I mixed up my words. It happens sometimes. Okay, so now I have all my information from my wireframes, which makes my life a little easier. I'm gonna go ahead and use my reusable text style from before. I'm just gonna make that be an H2. And it looks like actually the way I did the color did not come through. But that's okay, because I can just click on it. And it shows up my document colors. So I can make it be the same. Cool. And then I'm probably gonna use Rubik, which is the font for the H2 is like my body text, which is a Google font. Oh, you know what I should do? Rubik has a bunch of beautiful display fonts. Let's use one of those. And I can show you how to update a. Can I go in here? No, I have to detach it from the textile, I guess. There's like a bunch of fun versions of Rubik. Whoa, that one's going too fast. Moon rocks. How about bubbles? That one's kind of crazy, but I don't know if I'm vibing with that. Whoa. There's some wild ones in here. I don't like these so much. We're gonna stick with that one for the moment, and I'll deal with it later. Okay, so now I got my fonts mostly aligned to what I want. And I think just the way I'm gonna handle this image is gonna change, so I'm gonna delete that out, and those are supposed to be my social media icons, so I'm gonna figure that out too. So actually, I'm gonna save myself some time. I'm gonna pop back over my sitemap. I'm just gonna be able to hop to that website and grab stuff off their website pretty easily. I actually want to use their logo, so that's pretty cool. I already have their website, so I'm not gonna get lost. So maybe I don't need the H2 at all. Maybe I just do the logo text. Like that. That's Winnie Will's website. And look, they have social medias, they have Instagram and Facebook. Or I get an Instagram icon. Oh, will the internet be kind to me and give me both in one image? Oh yeah. Absolutely, they will. You should find icons from a proper icon source, but I'm just scooting through this quickly right now. Ultimately, I will use a proper icon source. So there's my social media icons. Can I change the ones? No, leave it alone. Black and white's fine. But I still need a photo. Maybe I can go on their Instagram and grab a picture. No, he's not logged into any social medias on this. You guys give me a picture to use so kindly. They love doing chaotic. I have a better idea. We'll go to Google Maps. There's a bunch of pictures of that right there. But again, it's a lot easier to just use your own pictures. Like, honestly, am I logged into my Google account? I don't need to open my Google Photos on the screen. That's too much. Let's see. That one's cool. Maybe it's okay to use this image if I provide an attribution to the person who took it, because Google Maps is cool like that and will show the name of the picture taker person. But it's probably just better and easier to use pictures from a source that you know the person or it's yours.
So now I got a little person skating, it's skate time. And now things are getting a little chaotic layer wise. I'm gonna go fix that. So I'm gonna go to the left hand side. I'm gonna see what's going on with all these layers. First up, this seems to be in a frame, a nested frame, which is kind of wild. I'm wondering how I can not have that big situation. Might drag it out of the frame, on the frame, because that's wild. Okay. So I have that image. I'll make sure I change my layer names to be layer names that can be comprehended by a human. So that one's social media. That one's person skating. Put that down in there. Okay. Write stuff down clearly. A lot of stuff going on here. I'm gonna need to really work out what I'm doing with the content. Maybe it's center aligned. Or and my social media icons kind of go to the location. And got my hours. Well, the way this text is formatted is probably not sustainable. That line height was a lot. Okay, I'm gonna take that down to like 16 pixels. And then I don't know why this is italics. Maybe we'll make it more. That's way too big. I'm gonna find ways to make the text a little bit shorter. That's conveying information in a long form way for no reason. And maybe I'll say set. Okay, well that's what's it's like in my mockups versus my wireframes. I'm like really thinking about my like type hierarchy and my layout in a lot more detail compared to what I was doing earlier when I was just plopping stuff around. Wireframe's a good space to figure out what your content is, but your design phase is much more about like, okay, how am I actually laying this out? That line height's still way. It's just regular. We'll just use regular text size, 16. This came up for a few given your mockups that I saw for our homepage. For a mobile screen, the smallest text size you want your stuff to be going to is like 16. It's not like print where you can go down to like 8 or 9. That like I'm gonna make you actually pull it up on your phone and see what it looks like. If you go below 16, it's like almost impossible to read. Like in real life, it becomes very, very small. Okay, so I got that going on, and I like this, but it also just like looks kind of boring. So maybe I might put a little bit of a visual flair. When I'm actually coding this will probably all be in like a section or a div, and maybe I could just like put like a circle as the background image that kind of sits behind the div and gets centered in it. That could be cool. Maybe it's a gradient. We love a gradient. Huh? Yeah. Do that, like, maybe I'll take the opacity down to like. That's still 2. Cool. Not all the way center, so like that's kind of fun. And so like, okay, I feel like I'm cool calling this a component now. This feels pretty solid.
So I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. I'm gonna group it. And I'm gonna hit the little diamond button, turn it into component. And I'm gonna call this component rink. I might end up using my rink component to make my other content item components later. But as my starting point, I think that's good as it is. Hello? Sure. Okay, anyways. So now I got my skate time component set up, and I'm gonna go ahead and do my wooden wheel one. And we're gonna see how I design this component that actually works out with a very different shaped logo and like different information. Because I might actually end up having to edit the component to kind of adapt to different kinds of information, so I don't have to write wildly different styles for all of my content, because that will make my life bad and not my simple. So a fast way to create an instance of a component is you can just copy and paste the main component if you don't want to use the assets panel. I'm gonna make sure I vertically align that. And so now I have my main ring component. Look, I have the empty diamond for my instance. And I like my layer list to kind of follow the order of the content when I can. So I'm gonna go page header, ring. So now I want to add in my wooden wheel content. And so bring that down here next to it. So I want to change this component to show that content. So first I'll do the text, because the text is always easiest. Oh, it looks like my circle is actually sitting on top of everything. I did not realize that. So I'm going to go back to my main component, drag it down to the bottom. And oh, that actually creates an issue with my social media icons. I'm going to be sneaky and change their blend mode to make my life easier. And here, no. No. Okay, well, we're just gonna ignore that for now because I don't want to spend my whole night figuring that out. That's why you should use proper social media icons and not just print them off the internet, because it'll do stuff like that to you. Okay. So now my circle is not on top of all my stuff. That is good, and it's not on top of my stuff in either component. So we're gonna go ahead back to the wooden wheel website. We're gonna copy. We're gonna save that image, because this is not. There's another program I use where you can just like copy and paste images into the image component, but that's not how this works. I have to go in here and hit say choose image, go to my downloads, find my little wooden wheel guy, and adjust. I want it to fit. So I have to make sure when I'm doing this component that I'm thinking about its scaling, and that something that is a different size so it will fit. But for the moment, I'm gonna leave that alone. It's not terrible, but maybe I might do the skate time one like a little smaller, or I might try to make sure I find images that are similar proportions for the logos. Like I might make different logos that all have the same frame size around them. And so like I'm starting to identify by using components the potential issues I might find in styling when I'm developing. So the point of this is to like help identify these things and mitigate them before you're writing code and you're bamboozled. So I got my little wooden wheel guy, got that lined up. I'm gonna need a different picture of wooden wheel. So we're gonna go in here, we go wooden wheel. When I do development on this, but I promise I will use my own photos so that way I don't get canceled. Let's find this picture of wooden wheel. They got fun stuff going on. They got bumper cars. They got it all. Show me a picture of the skate floor. That was a picture of the skate floor. Okay, great. I'm gonna need better pictures than these, but they'll do for the moment. I'll go back into Figma. I'm gonna go to I'll click on my image, and then I click on the image under fill. You hit choose image, and I screenshotted it again. Oh, I'm a menace. Okay. I have to do it without, because I always screenshot the things on my pasteboard, but that doesn't work in this situation. Oh, I actually think I can. Oh, yep, there we go. There was okay. So now I'm gonna change this to be the content I have in my wireframe. Foster Park. Why are you so big? Why did I do that? Nope, we want H2. I don't think H2 is bigger than I want it to be. What are you? Mixed content. 24. Well, whatever you are 24 pixels. So I will be dropping it down to 24 pixels. Okay, that makes the social media icons crash into the side of it, so I'm gonna bump that over, I'm gonna fix it later. And then I gotta go and I'm actually gonna grab the hours information I grabbed for Wooden Wheel from my wireframe, so I can copy and paste them and be happy. I'm just gonna make sure that when I paste it, I'm gonna hold down Command Shift V, we'll do it without styling the text. Great. Looks like I've put that content area too close to that one. This would actually be easier in code for the record. Great, that looks solid. And then I'll go back over my wireframes to grab the content from here. I'm just gonna be lazy and grab it from dev mode. No, just want to copy the content. There we go. Leave dev mode. Go back over to my mockups. And it should be no. It didn't take my content for me. Fine, I'll just do it this way. And see, like I've been changing all this stuff, but it doesn't change what's happening up here to the other component. And so now I've got 2 wireframes components turned into 2 design components. Now when I do my other pages, I can use this as a starting point, but I also might have a unique component for those. And then basically, well, now I guess I've shown you a little bit more about the components in mockups. The thing I'll show you next is what it is like to actually prototype them. So I am. Oh, the hamburger menu is annoying in that way, isn't it? For the time being, and you guys might run into this with yours. That you want to like get the hamburger menu to simulate. Oh, I know what I can do. I will add a frame. And a lot of times hamburger menus take up the whole page. So the way I can simulate that is by just making a page that is my hamburger menu content. So I'll do Android large. I'll put it over here. I'm just gonna call it menu. And I'll use that same blue gradient sky as the background. And then I'll grab the purple line from my styling. You can also lock layers, like if you know something's your background, you can just lock it so it doesn't get moved around while you're working. So I'm gonna paste that purple line and I'm gonna turn it 45 degrees, so I'm gonna turn it into a close icon. Copy it, and I'm gonna flip it. Is there anything to flip it? Of course not. That'll do it. And then I can align them to each other. Close enough. My close icon. And then I am going to. I'll do all my menu items in an H2 for the menu. And I'll do the items I'm gonna have on my website, all my pages. I need to do separate text items or they will not work as hotspots. In the middle, still gonna keep my little roller skate. Go to the home page for consistency. So I got rings. I got skate parks. Whoa, caps lock. And I got trails. Trails, okay, so now it's all my menu stuff set up for me. I'll vertically align them. Make sure they're also all centered. And I'll vertically distribute them, perfect. That's still not aligned, so I'm just gonna visually center it. I think we're doing okay now, cool. So now all this time I've been working in the design mode of Figma. I'm gonna head on over to what's called the prototype mode of Figma. And it lets you like actually try out working on a simulated device in your computer screen if you'd like, or on your actual phone. So first thing you're gonna see when you hit the prototype panel is it's gonna let you configure your device. It will automatically try to pick the device that you used for your frames. Like I was using Android large, so it's just gonna use like a generic Android phone for me. But I can change it if I want to. If I'm like, ew, no, I really want it to be an iPhone, I can still click one, or even get more specific and say I want a Google Pixel 2 for a throwback. I don't know. I think they're on the 8 or 7 now. Oh, a long time ago. Whatever. You can pick the color of it. You can make it silver. You can make it gray. You can pick the background color. It'll let you pick from your like actual design the colors you're using. So maybe I'm doing this dark purple. You might be like, where's this going? Up in the top corner, you can view your prototype by clicking on the play button all the way in the top right. And what it'll do is it'll like put a little phone there and it'll plop your design there. If you're doing a desktop prototype, it'll actually just like scale this to the width of the screen to like give you the browser experience of interacting with it as if it were a real website. This is not a real website, obviously. But I do like to make sure I say it. So right now I can't really go anywhere. I can use my arrow keys to go through my screens and like see what they would look like. And like actually get to scroll them and like test it out. But we're gonna make it so we can actually click around it like it's a real website. So how am I doing that? We're in prototype mode. So now when I click stuff, it selects them as what's called hotspots or targets, quick targets. So I'm gonna just go through each screen one by one and think of all the stuff on that page that I might need to link to another page. I'm just gonna focus on the pages I have right now. That's just gonna be my home page, my menu, and my links. So let's just start from the top corner for this left screen. When I click on this roller skate, I want to go to the home page. So I'm just gonna, there's this little circle at the side, I'm gonna drag and then let go on home. And now it's made an interaction flow tab. So it says on tab, navigate to home with an instant transition. Perfect. I'm gonna leave that on. Now you'll see I get like a little arrow on the screen. So that's gonna show up. I'm gonna keep doing it over and over again. So if you missed it, it's okay. So the next thing I want this close icon to always go back to where it was. So you can make these flows by just like clicking and dragging, but you can also make them by like clicking and then configuring it over here. So in the case of close, I actually always want it. I'm gonna hit the plus on interaction. And I want on tap, navigate to. But there's also other options. I'm actually going to configure this one to be back. So whenever somebody clicks on the menu, no matter what page they're on, if they hit close, it's just going to put them back on the page they were already on. Okay, so now I've got my close configured to go back. I've got my rink, my little roller skate configured to go to the home page. And so if you notice things that are grouped might be hard to select at first, it'll come across like it's all one touch target. If you double click, it'll go inside the group. You can also click on items from the layer panel to select them as touch targets. So trails I don't have set up as a page yet, so I'm gonna leave one. Sorry, Stanley. So I just want to worry about rinks right now. So I'm gonna go to the circle and I'm gonna drag it across to that rinks page I made. And you can also do it over here in the prototype panel where it says interactions, it'll say tap. And then you can pick your page for the drop down. So I think I have all the things linked on this page that I can. Let's look at my home page. So now I'm starting to get like all these like fun little lines going on. So that's cool. Also, I'm pretty sure that in a component, we're about to test it out. If I
if I set a part of a component to link somewhere, that it's gonna do it in all instances. I'm pretty sure. Not 100% convinced. I just want to select the hamburger menu. So I'll do the menu. Oh, and it does not look like it's doing it for all instances of the component. Menu. Okay, so now see if they start to get all like, you don't have to live like this. Like if you end up deciding to change something in your design, if you click on design, they'll go away and they'll come back when you go to prototype. And to make sure this is actually working as expected. So now I got all my little lines going. I can now go over to my preview. And if I click on my menu, it'll bring my menu up. I can click on rings, the ring page, I can click on menu, it'll go menu. If I close it, it'll go back to the page I was on. One thing I do want to note though, is in my current setup, if I refresh the prototype, I right now have it set the menu page to be the starting point. So when I try to do the go back on the close, it doesn't do nothing to go back to. And so you can actually configure your flow to have a different start screen. And I believe I can do that over here. And I don't want that to be the flow starting point. It'll come up. So when I click on the artboard, I can then say this is the flow starting point. So if it starts off on the wrong page, that is how you fix it. And it shouldn't mess up your other things. So let's see if that works for me now. Also to refresh a prototype and just like put it to its initial state, it'll be in when you hit its URL, you press the R key. And now it shows my home page as my starting point. So I can scroll around, I can click on the menu, click on the rings page, I can open the menu, I can close it, I go back to home, I can open the menu and I can close it. So everything seems to be working as expected. And like I was mentioning before, when you don't have an artboard selected, it'll let you configure your background and your device. So like if I set it to pink, it'll change to pink. If I set it to black, it'll set to black. For the prototype, we're just doing a mobile prototype. I'm not requiring people to do a desktop prototype. You should do a desktop mockup of just your homepage. And there's a reason why I keep it on a separate page. Like you see, I have a wireframes page, a mockups page, mobile, and a mockups page desktop. Is any artboards I put onto this page, it will try to put it in the flow. And so if I make a frame like that big, now when I go over here, I don't know if it'll actually have this. This used to be a bug in Figma, but it might not be anymore. And if that's not the case, I love that for us. It used to like randomly try to slot like the huge screen into the phone screen. My advice though is just avoid it. Put your desktop mockup on a separate Figma page. Okay, is it everything I needed to cover? I think so. Does anyone have any questions? Or is that all pretty straightforward and you just want to try it and be able to ask questions while you're working on it? Cool. Do I have any questions from my friends in the Zoom about Figma? About components? About prototyping? Also, if any of this was confusing to you, you want a more hands-on granular review, I did on the blog, oh, I should reshare my screen. Share screen. I did on the blog add, in this little review section, there is a like intro to UI UX that Code Academy came out with recently that actually specifically goes over making wireframes in possibly in Miro, maybe in Figma. But the prototype, it goes over prototyping in Figma as well. And like all of this like rich content is free. So like you can do the informational, the quizzes, the articles, like if you want more granular review on it, or you're feeling really lost, you don't want to watch back the recording, that could be a good way to get that review. Or maybe even get some stuff that I missed because Figma changes all the time. Like it now has that Google Maps filter, not maps, fonts. I would have had no idea. So learn new things all the time. So if you're like, I'm really a little confused and you're watching in this recording, this is a good place to come first. It'll kind of take you through the process for all this stuff again, if you need it. Cool. Now, 8 o'clock. Y'all very bravely shoot through an hour and a half. My throat's kind of sore from talking so much, so I'm gonna take a break for 20 minutes, and then I'll be back in here, and I'll be able to pair with folks, help you with any issues you're having with web development stuff, with your Figma, with your wireframes, like anything you're having trouble with. I am here to help, but I do need to stop talking for a little bit. Friends on the Zoom, do y'all have any questions? And if you do, I would just say come back onto the Zoom in like 20 minutes and I can talk to you before you're done for the day. Okay, I'll leave it open. If you have questions, you can write it in the chat and I'll make sure to call on you when I come back. If you don't have questions and you just want some heads down time, or you just are done for the day, because you've been in class for 4 hours, 4 classes, or whatever, I know some of you have crazy schedules, you can hop off for the night, and if you end up having questions over the course of the next 2 weeks, just let me know. Alrighty, thanks folks. Oh, yes, Melina, you can present. Do you mind doing it after I come back from break though?
Unfortunately, I will be traveling in a car for 45 minutes.
Would you like to go right now? Because you know what, I don't even have to talk for you to present, so that's fine actually.
Yeah. I'll be really quick.
Yeah,
Should I share my screen?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop the recording though.
Okay.